You made it! Welcome to Vienna. We are so glad you're here. This event is part of Vienna Up, the Startup Festival. Have you got your Vienna Up wristband? Put it on and enjoy special offers and activities. Swing by the festival home base, say hi, hang out, and enjoy Viennese Hour to sample local food, wine, beer, and soft drinks for free. And have some fun while making new connections. Visit partnering traditional Viennese coffee houses to sip a free melange, meet new contacts, check your email, or just have ideas both crazy and grand. Enjoy Vienna. Go to viennaup.com, sign up for the newsletter for daily highlights, and we'll see you at the home base.
Thank you for this video. And please don't leave right now for the free drinks at the Vienna home base. You have time for that after this conference. It's not open yet. It's not open yet, good. I'm very happy to be here today. I was born and raised in Vienna, but lived in a lot of different countries, but came back. Why is that? Because I really believe that Vienna is one of the most livable cities, and not only because the polls say it nearly every year, but I really believe that it's a good place to raise your children, and I have one little daughter now. And this is because of the combination of affordable housing still, and I hope we keep that, the great social system, healthcare, childcare, the lots of green areas, the woods around, the amazing drinking water. You nowhere find as good drinking water, I feel, as in Vienna. The cultural offer, the simple combination of rural and city. Most of it is thanks to great planning a century ago. And somehow I had always this feeling that we lost a bit of this innovative movement in the last decades. But what I'm very happy to see is that innovation is back to Vienna. We are focusing way more on new projects regarding climate, social, etc. And many of them will be presented today. My name is Barbara Inman. I'm working for Climate Lab as a program director. And I'm very grateful to be part of this conference and moderate you through the day. So you will see me more often on stage in between and telling you what's happening. But before we start, it's something that we sometimes forget, and I don't want to keep it till the end. I want to thank everyone that made this conference possible. First of all, our partners, Wiener Stadtwerke, represented by Gunda Kirchner. Thank you very much. Wien Holding, represented by Thomas Born, who I think will come later because I haven't seen him yet. Klima and Energiefonds, represented by Miriam Schönborn, and the City of Vienna, where we have several representatives as well later on stage. So thank you to all the partners once again. Clap. You can clap. It's good to clap in the morning, you know? I as well thank the organizing team of Vienna Business Agency, Impact Hub, Climate Lab, and Zeitecht, our technical team, who made this possible. You see them in their nice Vienna Up t-shirts, you see them running around with microphones, you see them managing the catering areas and coffee areas. Without these back office and people behind the scenes, these kind of conferences would not be possible. And last but not least, I want to thank the Vienna Business Agency in general to make these kind of conferences possible, where we can showcase innovations that Vienna is representing to here, to the room, to all of you, but as well to the whole world, because we are streaming online and everybody can watch. And by that, I want to thank the managing directors, very new in the job, Gregor Dykes, and Gerhard Hirzi, who will say a few words to welcome you as well.
Hello, good morning, everybody. A very warm welcome on behalf of the Vienna Business Agency at the Smart City Summit 2023 in the course of our startup festival, Vienna Up. I was born in Graz. I came to Vienna and I never got back, for whatever reason. So speaking of reasons, there is a reason why we called this summit Smart City Summit and not Smart Region Summit or Smart Village Summit. Actually, there are more than one reason. Reason number one is most people on the world live in cities. Today it's about 50%. In almost 30 years it will be 70%. And cities are the places where the problems of our planet show themselves most clearly. You know all the challenges. Reason number one, and this is actually the good one, our cities are not only the places where the problems are, they're always also the places where the solutions are. They are places where innovation, where R&D, where creativity happens, and they are the places where people live who are open for new ways off the beaten track. And Vienna, in that regard, is no exception. We have to face the same challenges as any other metropolis around the world. In 2010, Vienna was the 11th largest city within the European Union. In 2023, one decade, a little bit more than one decade later, we have become the 5th largest city within the European Union, which means we overtook 5 metropolitan areas in Europe and London, but they overtook themselves. And we have welcomed 300,000 new inhabitants in Vienna with 300,000 new and additional needs. So don't get me wrong, growth is a good thing because it's a precious basis, precious humus for any kind of development. But at the same time, of course, it puts pressure on every kind of infrastructure, housing, transportation, healthcare, you name it. And I'm very glad that I'm able to see something like a Viennese approach in tackling these challenges. And this Viennese approach is kind of a value-driven approach based on the fact or on the assumption that all our endeavors have to put the humans into the center and not the technologies. We called it digital humanism in Vienna, and to digital humanism says that humans have to shape technology and not are being shaped by technologies. Speaking of smart cities and smart city policies, this digital humanism means that Vienna has no ambition to become the city with the most sensors or the most cameras, the most embedded chips or the most AI applications in the world. But the city has the ambition to safeguard the high quality of living for its citizens. And coming back to that growth, in 2010, Vienna was elected the most livable city worldwide for the first time, and one decade later, the city still is. And I think this can give hope and some kind of assurance. For the time being, there are roughly 9,000 companies in Vienna working on sustainable city solutions. This, of course, is good for the city because it creates value, it creates employment, but it also contributes to the reputation of Vienna as a hotspot for sustainable city solutions. Within our startup festival, Vienna Up, we have the ambition to connect and attract climate pioneers from all over the world. And today at this Smart City Summit 2023, we want to shed some light on the flagship projects here in Vienna. And of course, we want to discuss solutions, groundbreaking solutions coming from all over the world. So thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. I wish you a happy, interesting Smart City Day. I would say let's get started and let's climb the summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerhard. And you said it, we want to listen in and discuss some of the flagship projects that are happening currently in Vienna, some of the innovations that are taking place. And this is your agenda. We will start with a question. can cities really make a difference? And we have some great keynote speakers for that. And then have the first session, Thriving Economy Within Planetary Boundaries. Is this even possible? Question mark. After a little break and climate lab tour, so whoever was never at Climate Lab before, Gebhard and Tom will guide you through in the break. And then we have a little lunch prepared for you, so whoever is hungry will get some food. We go into the second session, that is Net Zero Cities, and then followed by a break and a co-creation session with Wien Box and a tour to a little office down there at the Danube Channel that works with kids to understand what the future should really look like from a children perspective. And they painted nice pictures of how this could be. So whoever is interested in that can join this tour. We go into circularity because we really strongly believe a sustainable future is not possible without a circular system and without changing the way how we do economy. And that will be the end of the day for our online community. For the offline community, there will still be a little startup meeting because there are some startups among you that you will get to know, and a little tour to a temporary use project of our old business university that is right over there. That is not a business university anymore. I studied there. But now is a temporary use project with a lot of different offices, rooms, and we will be guided through it. And then, and only then, you can join the drinking at the home base. Are there any questions to the agenda so far? No. Great. Then I would ask you, and I would ask Silvia to put it on, we obviously want this conference to be as interactive as possible. And as you saw, we have an hour of input sessions where we have different panelists that will showcase what they are doing. We have different keynote speakers. And then we always have an hour of networking tours where you can get to know each other, etc. Plus, we have Slido. So please, everyone, put out your phones. Now you're allowed to put out your phones and scan this little thing. If the scanning doesn't work, please go to the website. And as well for the online community, please just enter that you can communicate with us as well. Once this is done, we would ask you already to answer the first question, because a conference is as well as good as the audience. So we want to know who is here. And the first question is, where are you from? Is it really 100% Vienna? That's quite crazy. 80%, okay. Rest of Austria, we are getting there. Dear online community, as well, show us where you're from. Everyone done? Some people are still jumping. Okay, Vienna is going down. I still see some people on the phone. Maybe they are writing text messages already, but... Okay, it seems we have a 50-50 Vienna, rest of Austria, Europe, and other, but as well 10% of outside Europe countries joining. Welcome to you especially, to listen in on what innovation Vienna has for you. The next question would be a quick one, just to get you used to Slido, as you need to use it through the conference. Which sector are you working in? And we have the options: public, corporate, civil society, startup, scale-up, science, and other. Good mix of public, startup, corporate, some other. Civil society is growing. Very nice. Thank you for that. So we have quite a mix, third. No, it's changing. Startup 20%, public sector 30%, and then corporate around 15 to 20%, a few civil society, and a few science people. To make this a bit more interactive, I would need someone with a microphone. Silvia? Okay, you will, thank you. Maybe we can ask some of you that will not be on stage, so I go to the back. What are you doing and who are you? Let's ask this guy. Hello.
I'm in the construction industry. I'm a lean consultant, so we advise construction projects. Yes.
Thank you very much. Construction industry is a very important one for climate. And can you go to the second last row, to the lady in black that is looking at her phone and trying to avoid me with the glass? Yeah, exactly the one that's looking away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emina, and I'm editor-in-chief of a magazine about sustainable development for a regional magazine for Western Balkan countries, plus Croatia and Slovenia, basically ex-Yugoslavian countries.
Thank you so much. Media is in the house as well. Very good. And then maybe we go to this side, and we take the lady in the checked blue and white shirt. How they stare at me and getting shocked. Oh my God, I need to talk.
Hi, my name is Sonja. I'm a consultant and coach, and I work with nature-inspired strategies, exactly with biomimicry, bring it to the organizational context.
Super. Thank you very much. Super interesting. We will get to know each other throughout the day. I will get in with some questions, and you can mingle afterwards. But now I want to jump into the first question of the day. Yes? It's there already? Which is, can cities really make a difference? And to answer these questions, we have two keynote speakers that come from very different perspectives. One, a more government city perspective, the other one, a more activist author perspective. And I'm very excited to ask Jürgen Czernochowski, and now I need to read it very carefully, Executive City Councillor for Climate, Environment, Democracy and Personnel of the City of Vienna. It's quite a big agenda that you have, and I'm very interested to hear how does Vienna create a better future with their strategy.
Good morning, everybody. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here with you, all of you, at this year's Smart City Summit, where, like every year, the brightest minds put together their heads to think of ways to make a better future. I'm really happy to talk to all of you here and all over the world, because I heard all over the world is there are people that are listening now. A better future. What am I thinking about when I think about a better future? We all tend to think about new technologies when we think about the future, like AI, blockchain, quantum computing, the new Apple VR goggles, whatever. I'm sure there will be a bunch of new technologies around in the future, and I'm also sure that it is very important for us to adapt to these technologies, to these technological projects in order to manage change. But the single most important feature of the future, of a better future, is something totally different. It is to work on a better future means to work on a high quality of life for everyone, not just a few. And I think that is something Vienna is doing, that is something Vienna can make a difference, to work on a good life for everyone. In fact, that is something very Viennese. Over the course of the last century, Vienna has managed to become, we already heard it, the most livable city in the world. Vienna is simply a good place to be. It offers a high quality of living, not just for the rich. Good public transport system, we heard about it, social housing, public green space, free water supply, and so on. These are all factors that massively contributed to the high standard of living. And Vienna is renowned for its achievements as a city that simply works, and a city that has the goal to work for everybody. And now we are facing a huge challenge that might jeopardize all these achievements. It's climate change. If left disregarded, it'll make life significantly unpleasant. It'll get hotter, natural disasters will become more frequent, resources will like water will become scarce, and so on. So the big question is, how can we make sure that Vienna remains a good place to live for everybody? How can we make sure that our current quality of living remains this high despite the inevitable effects of climate change? And the simple answer is we have to change. We have to do things differently. We have to do everything differently. Dear participants, and that is where you are needed. That's where we all are needed. Your inventions, your new and smart solutions, all the things you work on a daily basis, they can contribute significantly to that, because those ideas and those solutions are no ends in themselves. They are solutions for problems we have to solve. When we think about a better future, about a new and different path that we have to go along, these ideas, our solutions, are steps on that path. But what path am I talking about? Well, we laid out a path roughly at the same time when Vienna got elected the most livable city in the world. It was a smart city strategy. So maybe this is the first answer to the question what our mission is. It was 2014, nearly 10 years ago. We adopted a strategy that is can roughly be described as the essential guideline for our work in Vienna. In the meantime, it was updated in order to tackle our more ambitious climate goals. Essentially, the smart city strategy is about one goal, and that's once again securing the high quality of living in Vienna, while saving the resources we have through social and technological innovation, and the work for an inclusive and just society. But social and technological innovation, that are nice sounding buzzwords. What does they mean? There is something that tries to phrase that out. It's our climate guide. So if one of you didn't have the chance to read the climate guide, just Google it or use a search engine that isn't that evil to look up climate guide or Klima Fahrplan, because this is our roadmap. Roadmap is kind of fossil language, that's why we say climate guide in English and Klima Fahrplan in German. So that's our roadmap to make Vienna climate neutral by 2040. And it contains more than 100 measures and main levers we have to pull in order to reach that goal, being climate neutral in 2040 in every sector, be it mobility, housing, waste management, energy supply, the protection of our green space, and so on. And these measures and goals are based on certain immovable core principles. The first, and for me the most important core principle, is putting the people in the center of our politics. Like we did with our smart city strategy, it's about making social climate policy for all, because climate policies have a lot to do with social justice. Even though we all have to change our ways of life in order to live within the planetary boundaries, not everyone has the same impact on the climate. 10% of the wealthiest on our planet release 50% of CO2 in our atmosphere. And on the other hand, even though climate affects us all, not everyone has the same possibilities for adapting to new climate conditions or protecting themselves from them. So climate policies must therefore support social equality by supporting those who can't manage by themselves. So this is a core principle of our mission. In other words, once again, our purpose must be to create a good life for everyone. And to achieve that, we don't only need politics that is purpose-driven. We also need politics that follows a clear mission. And this mission is to make Vienna climate neutral by 2040, to work on a city that transforms itself in a circular economy, to secure and enlarge the area of the city that is covered by green spaces. It's 53% now, while providing affordable housing for a growing number of citizens, like Gerhard told us already before. to provide and guarantee high-quality mobility services in every neighborhood that render private cars obsolete. These are the missions. And one of our biggest endeavors, one could even say it's our own Man to the Moon project, is phasing out gas until 2040. By then, all buildings in our city will be heated and cooled entirely without having to use fossil fuels. Keep in mind there are approximately 500,000 gas boilers right now in the houses you can see outside the window, 500,000. So changing to climate neutral energy will be very challenging. For that we need everyone's brain power, especially yours, entrepreneurs, startups, innovators, the people working from the City of Vienna, because it's a real big thing we want to achieve. Because being on a mission only means knowing exactly what the goal is. It doesn't necessarily mean knowing every single step that it is needed. And so we have to work on these steps in the next years to come. The best example to illustrate this is the real moon landing that JFK called the biggest and most dangerous adventure in history of mankind. The mission took only 7 years from 1962, where he said the first time we chose to go to the moon within a decade. And 1969, it was done. So it only took 7 years, but it also needed the skills of over 400,000 people. It cost billions and billions of dollars. And at the same time, the US made the decision to fly to the moon. Nobody really knew how exactly they were going to manage. That was important. The most important aspect was the mission, a political mission. This clear mission gave everyone an objective that people committed to and that they wanted to achieve. And even decades later, society is still benefiting from many inventions and newfound knowledge that working on accomplishing this mission brought along. So, why I'm talking about that is, keep in mind, leaving fossil fuels behind is such a mission. It can be described as Vienna's own moon landing. And like JFK in 1962, we have the will to accomplish it. It's also going to cost a lot of money. It will also take some years to achieve, and it will also need the commitment and workforce for everyone, especially yours, because we don't know the steps, every single step already. So it's homemade Viennese ways and solutions that contribute to the entire city public welfare. You are part of this massive change process, be it because you focus on sustainability and on circular economy or energy revolution, whatever. I think the community you are right in is the community that is getting this mission done. There's something special about Vienna. We also heard it before. I'm quite sure that in many aspects over the past decades, Vienna has already been implementing mission-based politics. With eyes on public welfare, a good life for everyone living in Vienna, we laid a solid foundation that gives us a certain advantage when it comes to achieving climate neutrality. As I said before, as we heard before, it's about public housing, it's about public transport system, high quality water supply, high share of district heating, whatever. All these are the results of foresighted political decisions, and back in the day, many of them were deemed unrealistic. However, sometimes it takes bold and brave decision to be able to achieve something. Let me give you an example that is an example for a really bold endeavor in our city's history. Exactly 150 years ago, a political decision was made to build the first mountain spring pipeline. We already heard about the water quality in Vienna. It's because there is a mountain spring pipeline from the Alps to Vienna. And this pipeline was decided upon to secure our water supply and to fight a cholera pandemic. And there was a lot of discussion, but then the revolutionary and breathtaking infrastructure was built within only 4 years. Of course, there were skeptics around, and at the time the decision was made, some of the technical solutions have not even been discovered. And 4 years later, it was done. And as you can see, it worked out fine. Nowadays, nobody in Vienna can imagine a life without receiving the best water from the Alps by just turning on the faucet. Everything that positively moves a society forward is preceded by a dream, is preceded by a vision, and is preceded by a decision to go on that mission. And recently, we chose to go climate neutral. To achieve that, and therefore create a better future for all, we can use these foundations already laid in the past. And I want to invite you to make this mission with us, to go on this path with us. Because it's a path for a better future for us all. There's another core principle in the climate guide I told you before. In fact, there are 7 core principles you can read about when you do it. And this core principle is strengthening the regional economy. And that is where you all come into play. That is where this summit comes into play, because it takes bright and innovative minds to lead us into a sustainable post-fossil society. The more minds, the more ideas, the better the outcome. No matter how small or big, that's why solid partnerships between the city and businesses that focus on sustainable solutions are so important. And that's why I really want to thank Gerhard and the team of Business Agency to work on these solid partnerships, to work on funding schemes, to enabling innovation. Because that is what it's needed to go on that mission. For the mission to manage an ecological and social transformation of the city in less than 2 decades, it's you whose creative drive and will to find solutions and increase life quality will be essential. There are only 17 years to 2040. That's not a lot, considering the massive size of the mission, but we will not be stopped. The foundation has been laid through clear political intent. Now it's time to get it done. We walk in the same direction. That's why we need everyone to participate. Civil society, entrepreneurs, scientists, the city administration. We need you to participate. Let's do it. Let's stay hungry, keep being innovative, keep working on a livable city. We make sure you find the best conditions to do so, and I'm happy to do it with you.
Thank you so much. As well that you said we need a vision and a dream, because that's how everything starts. And you as well said everything has to change. And that leads me to a person that wrote a wonderful book that says everything has to change, basically, to keep everything the same, kind of. You will talk more about it. Katharina Rogenhofer is as well a woman that had a dream, I would say. She's one of the persons that brought climate activism to Austria. And not only that, she made it her mission to get all climate-related topics into our policies, government. She achieved it to a certain extent, let's put it like that, but she's on it. And she wrote the book, If Nothing Changes, Everything Changes. So what needs to change, Katharina?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I feel it's on me to kind of zoom out a little bit and to tell you all what's at stake. For you also to keep that in mind during this full day of discussions. There will be discussions where you zoom into the nitty-gritty details of city planning and stuff like that. But I'm here to tell you what we have to achieve as a grand mission. And I'm sure you all know these emblematic numbers, 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees. Over 190 countries signed the Paris Agreement stating that they will do everything in their power to limit global heating to 2 degrees, but better even limit it to 1.5. And that doesn't sound like a huge difference. It's just 0.5 degrees. What could that mean? And the IPCC showed that, for example, the number of people on the planet being exposed to severe heat will be tripled if we look at the 2-degree scenario versus the 1.5-degree scenario. So it's not just a little bit more. It's a significant number of people being exposed to extreme heat. And the last IPCC report even showed that a heating of the planet of 1.7 degrees to 1.8 degrees will mean life-threatening effects on half of the global population. And this is where I have to pause for a second, because half of the global population, this is not just some millions of people. These are billions of people probably being exposed to life-threatening effects of the climate crisis. And some of these effects we already see today. You can see those timelines go from 1950 to today, and you see a rise of flooding events on the top left, where we can see that from 1950 to today, flooding events became 15 times more likely. On the bottom left, wildfires, 7 times more likely today. On the bottom right, extreme temperature events even are 20 times more likely today than in 1950. And the thing that scares me most is that many scientists speak of things that are called tipping points. Tipping points are self-reinforcing processes like the thawing of permafrost. We have large, vast lands that are constantly frozen in Siberia, for example. These are called permafrost, and if they melt, they release methane into the atmosphere. And methane, as a very potent greenhouse gas, will heat the Earth further, will lead to more thawing of permafrost, and will release even more methane. So you see this is a vicious cycle of climate catastrophe. And this is exactly the word I'm using now, climate catastrophe. This can get us onto the brink of climate catastrophe if we start those tipping points. It's like a domino effect. We can't really stop it at that point where we release enough CO2 into the atmosphere to get those in motion. And the problem is we are already on the way to do this. In black, you can see the historical emissions that we have released into the atmosphere from 1990, and on the right side in different colors you can see the projections into the future. And the biggest uppermost blue projection is the most likely one to happen. Those are the current policies. If we consider scientifically all current policies on the planet, we end up at a warming of 3 degrees Celsius until the end of century. And I just talked about 2 degrees and 1.5 and what they mean for the planet. 3 degrees will be a totally different civilization, will be totally different economy. I don't even know if the economy that we see today will exist in such a scenario. But even if we consider all the pledges and targets, so all things politicians like to say in grand speeches, like the climate neutrality to 2040 that Austria wants to set as a goal and that is not put into a law currently, or Finland with climate neutrality 2035, Germany 2045, if we consider all those pledges that have not been put into law yet, we end up at 2.4 degrees of warming. And the 1.5 and 2 degrees that I just talked about, they are at the bottom in green and yellow, and we are far off from that goal. But there is one good thing in this graphic that has not happened yet. It's on us to decide which path we can take from here. And if I say we, who is we? We is the countries that have contributed the most to the climate crisis we see today. And if we add up all emissions that have been released into the atmosphere, you see the US and the EU leading the amount of CO2 that has been released. So we are responsible to take the first steps. We are responsible to find the biggest, greatest solution to those problems. And if I say we have to find solutions, that also means that we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And this is the example of Austria's climate policy. So if we really want to keep the 2040 target of being climate neutral, it should look like this. Our emissions have to go down. And what I show you now is what happened until now. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to see that it didn't go down at all since 1990. And this is an example of Austria, but every single country in the world, and especially in the global north, has to bend this curve down. And if I say that, what do we need? What do we need to do this? What do we need to achieve this? And those will be solutions that you've all heard of. But I'm here to just kind of briefly brush through them so that you keep them in mind in every session that follows. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. As Jürgen Czernohorski said before, we have to leave fossil fuels in the ground and find other solutions, renewable energy for our electricity, but also heat pumps for heating, etc. We have to switch the modes of transportation, especially in cities, plan good public transportation, plan and build the infrastructure for active mobility, and find solutions for the last mile. We also need people to do this. There is a lack of skilled workers to bring about these transitions. So we have to plan nationwide training programs for green jobs, and maybe your company can do a step in that. But we also have to put those things into law. As I said before, Austria was not able. Since 2020, we don't have a climate law. And this is something that we have to work on. We have to set binding CO2 budgets with yearly reduction targets so that we keep our goals alive. And we do not only not do the right things, we also subsidize the wrong ones. In Austria, for example, 5.7 billion of euros are yearly put into climate-damaging subsidies. And this is similar for other countries as well. We have to cut those. And we have to stop, fund, and build fossil fuel infrastructure projects. If 1.5 degrees or even 2 degrees is still our goal, no more coal plant, no more fossil fuel infrastructure can be built if we want to keep this goal alive. And something that is very important and dear to my heart, there are very cool innovations that have evolved over centuries, decades, millions, billions of years, and those are trees and grass and cool plants that are allies in our fight against climate change. We have to get those allies out, especially in cities, build trees, but also outside of cities, renaturate wetlands that can bring CO2 out of the air, and provide green spaces that are not only good for regeneration, but also for adaptation purposes, because cities are getting warmer faster than rural areas. And this has been mentioned before, this cannot be done. Reaching our climate goals will not be done by the linear way our economy works today. We can't take those much resources out of the ground, make products out of them, and throw them away. We have to think about reducing the input of resources in the first place, and then building everything. Every idea has to be built in a way where it lasts long, where things can be repaired, and every single facet of the product can be replaced as well. And we are also bigger than our our countries and nation borders. There are things that are produced somewhere else and we buy it, and we have to take also responsibility for our supply chains. And this is true for social purposes and also for environmental purposes. Just as an example, the EU is responsible for 16% of the global rainforest deforestation. So this is on us. This is not on Brazilians or wherever we point our fingers. This is on us to change around. And this sounds like a lot. As Jürgen Czernohorski says, we have to switch the way we're living totally upside down. We have to reimagine and invent the future. And I want to kind of take a different perspective on it, because we can win a lot in this transition. We can win and gain greener cities. We can go from A to B in a very comfortable way. We can produce our own energy and be energy independent of countries like Russia, like Kazakhstan, but also Iraq, where we get our gas and oil from. We can create green jobs. We can have cleaner air and lead more healthy lives in this future. So you have to be also part of keeping this vision alive. Where do we want to go? What is our vision of this moon landing looking like? How does the future feel and breathe? And where do we want to go? And sometimes I feel like this man on the cartoon, but just with more hair, who advertises this green future, and he says a lot about green jobs, livable cities. And at the back, someone stands up and says, but what if climate change is bogus or is a hoax, and we created a better world for nothing? And it's just about that. It's not only about the climate crisis. It's not only about CO2 emissions. It's about the world that you and I, that your children, that your parents, that other people in the global south will lead in the future. It's about the future that we want. It's about the future that we can create. And how do we do that? How does everyone support this future? And we live in a time where greenwashing and bogus claims are big. And I want to ask of you all, don't be part of this. Be part of the solution. And I know that many people of you are parts of a company or parts of the public administration, and you're maybe employee or at CEO level, and what can you do within your company, within your organization? There needs to be climate plans as well. How do you contribute and become climate neutral or even climate positive? How can you change things around? But how can you also be part of the training of the workforce of the future? How can you be the ones who give the tools in the hands of young people to change the way we see our future? But also, how do you plan business trips? How do you commute? How do your products get sent around? And how do you manage your freight transports? Do you use renewable energy? Can you build them on your roofs or on the areas that your company exists on? Don't make sustainable procurement just a word, but really do it and set an example, especially in administration or public-private partnerships, and go the extra mile to show that it's possible. And you are not apolitical actors. There is nothing as an apolitical actors. If you are part of the solution, then be loud about it. Tell other people how you've done it. And also demand the necessary political changes that you want to see, and that that changes the whole system around, not just your company. And we are all also here as citizens, not only as part of companies. So I really urge you to make your voices heard in elections, in referendums, in petitions, join citizens' initiatives, be part of NGOs, join the climate movement, and go to strikes. And as a human being, maybe you are the one your voice is the one that changes other people's minds. Maybe I'm not the one, maybe you have to speak up. And I want you to speak up with me and to make this great transition possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Katharina, not only for looking at the meta perspective, but for making sure that everybody knows that it's all of us that can make the change. Being it a small comment, being it convincing one person next to you, being it working on projects that are needed to make the change. And this is what we will focus on throughout the day, projects that are already there to make this vision that actually is a better future, like you put it, a more beautiful future where we all can live better, not worse, possible. And that's how we go to the first panel discussion, which is around thriving economy within planetary boundaries. So how is it possible to thrive? And that's this question of growth and degrowth within planetary boundaries. And for this session, I want to hand over to Karin, who will moderate the session. There you are. Moderate you through the session and as well get the panelists on board.
Thank you so much.
Only one reminder as well to the online community, we have Slido. So if you have questions to the panelists or to the keynotes to come, please use it, fill in your questions, and Karin will get them and moderate through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, distinguished audience, welcome to our first session of the Smart City Summit, a thriving economy within planetary boundaries. I may welcome to the panel my dear panelists, Eva Czernohorski from the Vienna Business Agency. Then we have Bianca Humer from the Wiener Stadtwerke. Then we have Sonja Zaratnik-Leonhardsberger from the innovation SmartWorks. Thank you, SmartWorks Innovations, that I can actually come up with that. And last but not least, our gentleman, the only one in our round, Mr. Clemens Leutgeb, who is the head of E7. Yeah. Very welcome. And on our panel with us, and actually our first speaker is Professor Sigrid Stagl from the Vienna University of Economics and Business, WU Wien. She's live with us from the United Kingdom. And my name is Karin Seltner, if I haven't mentioned that yet, and I work at the Vienna Business Agency too, and I'm very happy to host you today. We are here at the Climate Lab, a great place for innovative ideas and bold alliances to achieve climate neutrality goals as quickly as possible. And I would say that I first explain a bit about the session. So our session is twofold. First of all, we're going to start with the keynote given by Sigrid. And then later on, we're going to have a nice panel discussion with our panelists about their roles, about their responsibilities, and they will actually give you a short overview of what they do. And then afterwards, we're going to have some quick answers, questions, answers, rounds. And in the very end, I would love the audience actually to come to us and pose us the questions from all around the world. And yeah, I would say, let's get started. I'm going to start with our first guest, Sigrid. And I will give you a short overview of who is actually talking to us. So as I mentioned, Sigrid is working at the WU. She has founded in 2014 the Institute for Ecological Economics. And since 2020, she is the head of the Department of Socioeconomics and the director of the Competence Center STAR, which stands for Sustainability, Transformation and Responsibility. Sigrid, we look forward to listening to your keynote, which is on human flourishing within planetary boundaries. The floor is yours, and welcome from the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be with you. Also, unfortunately, I can't be with you physically, but thank you for allowing me to give the presentation in this form. I've called the presentation Human Flourishing Within Planetary Boundaries. Although, of course, as an economist, the economy is always the center of my attention. But we need to perceive the economy as being embedded in society, and the two of them being based on the biophysical foundations. And this is what ecological economics is, namely to study economic activities, but within their societal context and based on their biophysical foundations. So this integrated perspective is really what is called upon. And this is also already, so this is on the one hand new, because ecological economics is a rather new field of research within economics. On the other hand, the work that was done by the team at MIT on the limits to growth did exactly that. Yeah. That was the work that led to the publication of the Limits to Growth book on limits to growth. And this is also the second message that I want to get across. So on the one hand, we need to consider the economy as being embedded in society and being part of nature. And on the other hand, there are limits. Yeah? There are limits within which we need to consider our living and our producing. But, and that's the positive message, there are plenty of cases that we see already, plenty of regions, cities that are managing already to put boundaries up and do better than before. Yeah? But to see the economic activities as an integrated activity and to acknowledge boundaries, that these are the two main messages of my presentation. I'll see whether the clicker works. No, doesn't seem to work. Try to click again. Yes, now it works. Planetary boundaries. You may have seen that picture already, or a version of it. This is, as I said, I'm an economist, but as an ecological economist, I do read a lot of natural science publications. And this is work from natural scientists. Mostly the team is led by Johan Rockström. And the first version of the planetary boundaries we saw in 2009. Then it was updated 2015, 2022, and recently again. What we see there is, from a global perspective, which are the 9 most important dimensions that we need to pay attention to. It's no surprise that climate change is one of the dimensions there. But there are also others, such as nitrogen cycle, phosphate cycle, land use change, ecological integrity, biodiversity, and so on. So there are important dimensions on a global scale that we need to keep an eye on. Otherwise, we see exactly what Katharina Rogenhofer has pointed out, namely that there are tipping points. There are feedback effects which lead to runaway effects, which we cannot manage anymore. Yeah. And this is the qualitative assessment also that is given here, and the assessment is also quantified in the depiction. Namely, there is a green area in the middle, that's sort of safe operating space. Human development always means change to nature, but the question is, how deep is the change? Is it change that we can sort of live with? Or is it change that leads to effects that we cannot control anymore and undermines our life support systems? Yeah. Within the green area, we are sort of changing nature, but to an extent that is okay for us and for other species. And in the areas where we are outside of the green space, there we are really running into problems. So you can see that in multiple dimensions, natural scientists are telling us that we are really running into problems. What may be surprising is that climate change isn't even deemed as the most dramatic problem. So, for example, to the left of it, of climate change, which is on the top, biodiversity loss is considered as even a bigger problem. Yeah? So it's important to keep an eye on climate change, but it's not enough to just tackle climate change. This is the unfortunate conclusion from this natural science analysis. So, yeah. And here is a recent insights about global biodiversity, which has declined by nearly 70% since 1970. Yeah? And slowly, biodiversity is also rising up the business risk agenda. Yeah. So slowly, it is also coming into the sphere of economic decision makers that we need to pay attention to biodiversity as much as we need to pay attention to climate change and the other named dimensions. Okay. There's always a little bit of a delay, and this is, by the way, was a graph from the Financial Times. So I've thrown in a few graphs and articles from the Financial Times because it does come into the business sphere now that the biophysical constraints become important for economic decision makers. This is Johan Hogström, whom I mentioned already. He was sort of the mastermind behind the planetary boundaries work. And here in a recent presentation, he's also pointing out, of course, that we are part of, or we live in the Anthropocene. Yeah? Earth system scientists have declared that we no longer live in the Holocene, where we have been for the last 10,000 years or so, which was a very agreeable, which were very agreeable conditions for us, where most of human development has happened. But nowadays we live in a new geological epoch, but it's not yet a new state. So we need to be alarmed. We need to be really concerned to make changes to our ways of living and production, but there is still room for maneuver. And this was presented last week, the most recent update of the planetary boundaries work, where they are not only saying what are the dimensions and where do we stand, here now depicted with the current, meaning the little planets where they are, and if they're outside of the green space, then we are in trouble in these dimensions, which confirms what we have seen in the last graph, namely in many of the dimensions we are in trouble because we are not within in the current state, we are not within the green safe operating space, but they're also including the question whether it's safe and just. So this is for the first time a collaboration between natural scientists and social scientists, and this is so important. And also Jürgen Czernohorski mentioned it already. It's not just about climate policy. It's not just about acknowledging nature, but it's also about justice. So this safe and just Earth system boundaries, which was just recently presented, they are defined and quantified safe and just Earth system boundaries for sustaining the global commons that regulate the state of the planet, protect our species, generate NCP, reduce significant harm to humans, and support inclusive human development. Exceeding safe boundaries results in widespread significant harm. Our just and safe Earth system boundaries align for surface water, groundwater, functional integrity, natural ecosystem areas, phosphorus, and nitrogen. So these are the important dimensions where we're currently exceeding the boundaries. So we need to learn to acknowledge boundaries and flourish within the boundaries. Nations, cities, businesses, and other key actors need to set and achieve science-based targets for reducing their environmental impacts based on translation of safe and just Earth system boundaries to act on the fair shares. Nothing less than a just global transformation across all Earth system boundaries is required to ensure human well-being. Such transformations must be systemic across energy, food, urban, and other sectors, addressing the economic, technological, political, and other drivers of Earth system change, and ensure access for the poor through the reductions and reallocation of resource use. All evidence suggests this will not be a linear journey. It requires a leap in our understanding of how justice, economics, technology, and global cooperation can be furthered in the service of safe and just future. And here we are talking about the leap, and I just want to give you one example, what sort of leap it is for economics and business. In 2018, for the first time, a climate economist received a Nobel Prize for economics. It was a sort of exciting for the community that finally the field is acknowledged. It's really important also within economics. William Nordhaus was chosen as sort of the awardee. So when he picked up the prize, he gave a presentation about his model, which is called the DICE model. And on the slides of his presentation, he showed that it is economically, no, don't move forward yet. It is economically optimal to aim for a 4-degree increase of global temperature. We've just heard from Katharina Roggenhofer how drastic the effects are with 2 degrees, 3 degrees. Yeah, dramatic, catastrophic for a large part of the world's population. And here is the most eminent climate economist just picking up the most prestigious prize in the field and saying that 4 degrees increase in the temperature globally is economically optimal. So there is a big problem within the profession of economics, and that has influenced business practice. Yeah? So this is why we really need a leap in our understanding to acknowledge justice as a goal, just as much as productivity and income, and to acknowledge biophysical limits to be part of our analysis and of our doing. Now we can move on. Yep. The problem is that at the moment, no country meets the needs of the population and stays within the biophysical limits. But it's no surprise because our analyses have been based, at least for the last few decades, mostly on maximizing gross domestic product. Even the distribution of gross domestic product wasn't a concern. So this is another representation where the human needs are at the center, and this is work by former colleagues of mine from University of Leeds. But human needs are at the center. And the biophysical boundaries, can I use the clicker? The biophysical boundaries are around it. And here we have a country, Bangladesh. It's a poor country. Human needs aren't fully satisfied because the tarts in the middle. There's still lots of red areas. And what's positive about Bangladesh, it doesn't exceed the biophysical limits. It's fair share of the biophysical limit. Yet it's not an example that we want to follow because the human needs aren't satisfied, as we see in the center. The next graph shows Albania, which we would still consider a poor country. Human needs are satisfied to a higher extent, but not fully yet. We wouldn't be satisfied with that. But even at that level, important dimensions of a fair share of biophysical limits are already surpassed. And finally, the last graph, we see Austria, where at least on average, we have the means to satisfy human needs for all, but we are surpassing really important dimensions of the biophysical limits. Yeah. So the problem is no country meets the needs of the population and stays within the biophysical limits. This is why we need a new way of thinking, human flourishing within limits, producing and distributing within limits. So carbon prices are an important tool. Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm an economist. I do believe in carbon prices, and there we see a range of carbon prices that are already effective today. Yeah, at the moment, the EU emissions trading scheme at that time was roughly at 90. As you know, we do have a carbon price now in Austria since 18 months, but it's at a much too low. The level is much too low. It really needs to go up, and other countries have shown the way. But we cannot just leave it to carbon prices to make motivate this whole transition. And even if we are taking all these schemes of carbon pricing, and they are taxation and emissions trading schemes, into account, only 23% of carbon emissions worldwide currently have a price, and a price that can be very low. Yeah, so it doesn't mean that even if they have a price, that it's a decent price that would roughly account for the total cost of carbon. But only 23% worldwide of the emissions at the moment have a price. Yeah? So there is room for improvement, and that is standard economics. So there we're not leaving standard economics yet, but we need to go beyond it, of course. Yeah? Here, that's the way of thinking that we need. Our economic system is completely dependent on nature. And this was an article that was recently published in the Financial Times, for example. Yeah, so this is what I tried to indicate with the biophysical boundaries. And this is what ecological economics tries to include into our analysis, as well as Earth is past its safe limits for humans. Yeah, this was the presentation by Johan Rockström, which was also perceived in the Financial Times. And degrowth starts to move in from Europe's policy fringes. 2 weeks ago, there was a conference in the European Parliament on degrowth. Yeah? So to see how can business activities and economic activities be successful even within limits. So what can business and economics contribute to address these challenges? On the one hand, to acknowledge that we are in the Anthropocene, yeah, but that it's not doomed yet. It's a big challenge. Yeah? That we need a transformation to stay within planetary boundaries, to acknowledge limits to growth. Yeah? By the way, the report Limits to Growth that was published in 1972, and it was perceived by economists, but economists really slaughtered it. They really didn't like the report. And it's not that they didn't like the analysis, they didn't like the conclusions of it. And there was an article written in a journal, and William Nordhaus, whom I just mentioned earlier, the Nobel laureate, was the editor of the journal. And it is normal academic practice to allow somebody whose work is attacked to write a rebuttal, yeah, to defend yourself. And already at that time, 1973, William Nordhaus did not allow Jay Forrester, who was sort of the mastermind behind the Limits to Growth report, to defend the approach that they had taken. Yeah, so the thinking in silos has been defended for decades, for 50 years, and it's time to leave the silos and to think in feedback loops, to think in an integrated fashion, to think in complex systems, because the systems that we live in, that we work with, they are complex. We can't define it away. Yeah. Yes, there are market forces, and they are important. Sorry, I'll still need to slide. Thank you. Market forces are in effect, and we need to correct them so that they are adequately taking into account societal and biophysical effects. Technological disruption, political progress, and mass movements, all of that we need in order to get to zero carbon, zero loss of nature, zero poverty, and zero pandemics. The way to go about it is to set science-based targets, to seek regenerative ways of producing and living, basically meaning that we are using and improving the resources that we have and not exploiting them, and meeting the needs for all within planetary boundaries. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sigrid, for your interesting insights. I have one question before we continue with our panel. So you have actually mentioned it, Katharina has mentioned this, the climate crisis is very alarming. And at present, we do not meet the efforts to keep the global warming below 1.5 degrees. However, what makes you optimistic that we can still make this goal and meet that and actually make the turnaround? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have seen in Jürgen Czarnohorski's presentation that within a few years, that somebody who had a vision and somebody put their mind to it was able to do unimaginable things. Yeah, be it putting the man to the moon, putting new infrastructures in place in Vienna, and so on. And if we go back in history, we can see that changes often are possible within a very, very short period of time if we put our mind to it. Yeah? And therefore, I think it is possible, but we need the second part of the sentence, if we put our mind to it, if we all work towards a same goal, and therefore this living within, or human flourishing within planetary boundaries, thinking in an integrated fashion, acknowledging feedback effects, and acknowledging limits. This is sort of a way of going about it. And if all decision makers do it, it is possible, but it requires no less than all decision makers going in that direction.
Thank you very much, Sigrid, again. But now let's come to our panelists. Our first panelist is my dear colleague, Eva Czernohorski. And I have to look at my cheat sheet to make that correct. Yeah? So Eva is actually an expert in innovation, technology, transfer and co-creation. She's the head of the Technology Services Department at the Vienna Business Agency. And together with her team, she supports companies in their innovation activities, guides them through the funding opportunities in Vienna, and brings them together with partners. Eva played a leading role in the development of the Vienna strategy for economy and innovation, called Wien 2030 or Vienna 2030, and coordinates the smart city solutions for the cities, flagship topics with more than 70 lighthouse projects in which universities, research institutions, as well as the city administration and industry are working collaboratively to make Vienna climate neutral by 2040. Eva, can you please give us some insights on your slides? Yeah.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I think that the question, what a thriving economy within the planetary boundaries may look like, is the most important question for a business agency such as the Vienna Business Agency. And honestly, although I have read the books of Kate Raworth, of Maya Görpel, and even the experts that were mentioned by Sigrid, and I listened to her presentations for a lot of times, I still don't know exactly what that future economy may look like. But I think we have to stand that uncertainty, that ambiguity, but what makes me optimistic is that on a global scale with the Sustainable Development Goals, we have some kind of a common ground. And when we meet now delegations coming from Europe, but even coming from Asia or from South America, those SDGs are a common framework, and we are able to talk about it, how to reach those goals. But it's unquestioned at all parts of our globe that this is where we have to go, and this is our common mission. And on a regional level, it's, you already mentioned it, yeah, and we see it here, this Vienna 2030 strategy. It's the strategy on innovation and economy for our city, and it was approved by the City Council in 2019, and for the first time this was not built on the credo that innovation leads to prosperity and therefore is what we have to invest in, but we set some missions in that strategy, and one of these missions is to make Vienna climate neutral by 2040, and to collaborate with enterprises in this city who, on the one hand, contribute their ideas and their smart solutions to enable that sustainability. And on the other hand, it's companies who implement those new solutions to reduce their carbon footprint and to make a thriving economy within the planetary boundaries function. And what I like about that strategy compared to others is that it's not just a piece of paper, but it's an ongoing coordination process of very many stakeholders in the city. Even when we started working on this, the city administration was involved, as well as agencies such as the Vienna Business Agency, the so-called social partners, so the Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber of Work, as well as the Association for Industry and the unions in Vienna. So it was a very broad mix of stakeholders. And they, since 2019, altogether kicked off almost 100 flagship projects with more than 260 partners involved. And you already mentioned it, more than 70 of those flagship projects aim at making this city sustainable and make it function within the planetary boundaries. And this is what makes me optimistic. And a second picture I want to show you is this one. It's the team of the Vienna Business Agency. And it's a bunch of people who are really into that aim. And we kicked off an internal project some years ago to foster sustainability on the one hand within our own organization and within our portfolio for Viennese companies. And it was amazing to see that all of these people really are into that mission and contribute the big steps, such as providing sustainable energy for companies or establishing sustainable technology centers, as well as the small steps, such as commuting to our offices by public transport or offering vegetarian meat at our events. So all those steps are needed, and it's great to see that all those guys are doing what they can in their sphere of influence. And I think that's the way we can do it, to join forces, even here at Climate Lab, where lots of partners decided to establish a community and to look at that big challenge from different angles and to join forces so that we can reach the goal of a thriving economy within the planetary boundaries.
Thank you, Eva. So I may pass that on to our next panelist, Bianca Hummer. Bianca is working at the Wiener Stadtwerke. She's a trend scouting and innovation manager there, and a specialist for innovation, sustainability management, trend scouting, as I've mentioned, and an experienced project and program manager with an expertise in the field of innovation, digitalization, and public funding. Moreover, and that's something that really fascinated me, Bianca speaks 5 different languages. Yeah. So Bianca, what can you tell us about Wiener Stadtwerke and your role in sustainability?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today, to represent my department at Wiener Stadtwerke. I'm working in innovation management there, and I'm gonna show you just a few facts about Wiener Stadtwerke. We are the largest communal infrastructure service provider and also one of the biggest employers in Austria, with about approximately 16,000 employees at the moment. Our mission is providing essential services for over 2 million people, not only in the city of Vienna, but also beyond the borders in the metropolitan area. And our claim is that we want to become the climate protection group and smart city enabler. We span a lot of industry sectors actually among our group companies, starting at energy, gas and power infrastructure, but also funeral services and facility management. And a big part is also mobility services. I think most of you know Wiener Linie, and maybe you got here by public transport. So that's also a big part that we are doing. We in our department are funding innovation and sustainability. We've heard a lot of people talking about challenges today. Of course, these challenges are also really targeting us at Wiener Stadtwerke. First and foremost, climate change, of course, but also digital transformation and demographic change. We are also experiencing skilled labor shortage, for example, which makes it really hard for us to find qualified personnel for our project actually tackling climate change. But for us, change is also a chance. You see, we only changed one short letter, making it framed a little more positively. So this is our answer. We are investing heavily into all kinds of solutions tackling climate change. Starting 2023, we are going to invest 7.1 billion euros into projects tackling infrastructure, modernization, for example, extending pipeline networks, implementing sustainable mobility solutions, and so on. So innovations for us are the key to a future, to a sustainable future, to making and keeping Vienna the most livable city in the world, and an international role model. We in our department have certain investment funding facilities that our group companies can profit from. We have a climate fund, and we have a fund for research, innovation, and technical innovation projects. Here I brought with me some example projects. You can read them maybe in the slides. I'm just going to pick one or two really cool and important ones. For example, we are replacing paper parking tickets by a QR code solution. This is a pilot project for a parking space at a hotel, but imagine this is rolled out to the whole city of Vienna, so nobody will ever need paper parking tickets anymore, can have it any time on the smartphone, can't lose it, which is also a problem sometimes, and it saves a lot of resources, a lot of paper, basically. And another cool project is in 3D printing. For example, we are knowledge building 3D printing solutions, but are also tackling like what's at the end of it, like the residue, what is left of 3D printing, we are trying to use again. So yeah, that's two really cool projects.
Well, thank you so much, Bianca. That was really very informative. Our next guest is Sonja Zaratnik-Leonhardsberger. Now I really have to concentrate that I make this right. Sonja is the Managing Director of SmartWorks Innovation. So that was the tricky word for me. A company that has been founded by Wien Energie, so Vienna Utilities, and the Wiener Stadtwerke. In a previous role, Sonja used to lead the Department for Corporate Startups at Wien Energie. And moreover, Sonja is as well a multilingual coach, scout, and used to be a scout as well, and dedicated to the startup world. Sonja, what can you tell us about your work at SmartWorks Innovation?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much to have the possibility to speak here. SmartWorks Innovation is a sustainably thinking company, a strategic investment company held by Wiener Stadtwerke and Wien Energie. So that means we invest in startups. Startups. I show you the next slide. Startups in the strategic focus of energy, to get or to make the energy transition possible. Startups in smart cities, that means make the transport transition possible, and of course digitalization. We are part of this company group, thank you very much Bianca, of the company group, and for us it's very important, and we can take all the advantages by Austrian leading energy and infrastructure provider, Wiener Stadtwerke and Wien Energie, and we can, together with these advantages, or with the help of the advantages, we can maximize the success of the long-term partnerships with the startups. This is very, very important for us. In our portfolio at the moment we have 6 startups. Bianca already told you something about the smart inspection, but I will start with EaseLink. EaseLink is a startup from Graz, from Austria, and they developed a hardware-based automated conductive charging system for the electronic cars. The next one, Anything is the startup from Leverkusen, from Germany. They have a photovoltaic-powered sensors for IoT solutions for many different use cases. Ionate is a startup from UK. Ionate helped to keep the grid stable with the solution from smart transformers. That means that the software put on the transformers of the hardware can help with the control of voltage and power. Smart inspection, Bianca told you already something. It's a corporate startup from Wien Energie, and they. So maybe a question for the audience here: who of you knows smart inspection? Okay, I see some hands-on. It's cool. They help to make the maintenance, the inspection for infrastructure and buildings with drones, and also with robotic solutions like Energy Dog. Triple is a startup from Graz, and they develop a software solution how it's possible that the employees' emissions can be reduced. And UPIC, it's a startup from Vienna, from Austria too. They have also a software solution. How can we optimize the charging solution also for shared economy? Because all of you and us, we know that the future will not be in autonomous transportation. So we have to put our efforts on shared economy, on public transformation, and UPIC also supports this way how we can tackle the transport transition. I show you one project, e-taxi. Who knows e-taxi? I see some hands-on, cool. E-taxi is a project powered by Wien Energy, powered by EastLink, and of course taxi companies in Vienna. And this is a solution which will be start in the summer 2023. So keep your eyes open. In summer, and the solution is that the taxis can be automatically charged while waiting for the customers.
Very interesting. So thank you very much, Sonja, for your presentation. And last but not least, the only gentleman on today's panel, Clemens Leutgeb. Clemens studied social economy at the University of Linz. He used to work in the 1990s at the Austrian Energy Agency and was responsible for the collaboration within the CE countries. And after this role, he actually became the head of the business area Buildings and Space Heating. And in 2007, mid-2007, Clemens decided to become the managing director of E7, Energy, Innovation and Engineering. And there he particularly deals with topics such as energy policy instruments and measures, monitoring and evaluation of measure and program effects, as well as climate policy, energy efficiency in buildings, and energy services. Clemens, what makes working at E7, Energy, Innovation and Engineering, so special for you? Yeah. Can you please introduce us to your slides and company?
I think what is special for me and what is always interesting that we zoom on these nitty-gritty things that are important when you bring things to the ground. For example, I brought a few slides related to decarbonization of the building stock in Vienna, focusing mostly on degasification. As we heard in the keynote speak, it's like landing on the moon. I wouldn't say it's really landing on the moon, but it's simply convincing a lot of people on doing investments that are completely different than the investments they are used to. If you change decentral gas boiler, it's not really an investment decision. But the decarbonized solutions are more infrastructural investments, and people that have to take these investments are simply not able to understand, to take these decisions. They are not prepared for this completely different approach. So it's not so much about different technologies, but about different processes, different decision-making processes that are usually difficult for residents. I will not go into detail here. I just show you one slide about the volumes. We have heard that we have 500,000 gas boilers in Vienna. The decentral ones, which are the most challenging ones, we have, I don't know the number of boilers, but it's about 40,000, if I can read it right, buildings where we have decentralized gas boilers, which is approximately, these are only the residential buildings I have to add, which is approximately a quarter of all residential buildings in Vienna. So this is really challenging, simply because at first the energy supply has to be centralized, which is a challenge by itself, but we know to deal with it from district heating. But we also have to improve the energy performance of these buildings, because all these solutions don't work well without improved energy performance. We have to bundle a lot of technical measures, and this means that we have to involve residents. And this means we need an interaction between, a good interaction between the demand side, where we have to add incentives in order that these investment decisions are more easily to be taken. But we have in parallel also to work on the supply side, because we don't have the capacities. And here I don't mean capacities in construction industry, but it's not only about the volumes, it's also about quality. So what has to be delivered? For example, energy services are for the moment not available in this area, or only very at the beginning. This is something that has to be developed. And finally, it's also about changing financing structures. For the moment, financing institutions are not super well prepared for decarbonization investments. As I said, if you exchange a gas boiler, it's not, you don't usually have a problem with financing. But if you want to make an investment into deep drilling ground source heat pump, invest in the distribution system in the house, and perhaps in a small grid in order to involve a whole district. So these are really long-term infrastructural investments, and you need to set up the financing structures accordingly. And we need all these three elements, and others I didn't mention here, bring this together in a participatory approach. And these are the things that are interesting for me and for my colleagues.
Thank you very much, Clemens. I've just learned that we are a bit running out of time. So therefore, we'll skip a few questions and we'll come into more depth, I would say. Yeah? So let me probably start with Eva. Eva, Vienna puts special emphasis on smart and sustainable city technologies. Could you describe how Vienna supports the development and implementation of these technologies, and how does the Vienna Business Agency contribute to these technologies?
Yeah, the Vienna Business Agency offers a great variety of services, of subsidies, and in addition of properties and facilities to enable business in Vienna. And in all those pillars of our work, we put a great effort in fostering sustainability in business. So for instance, we are currently adapting our funding programs, and from 2024 onwards, we will just provide grants for projects that contribute to more ecological and social sustainability and do no significant harm to our planet. We currently are planning to build some technology centers in Vienna, and we aim at running them climate neutral, and I hope that we will even manage to do it in a circular way, so to reuse some infrastructure that already exists in Vienna. to lower our CO2 footprint. We are running an incubator together with the Viennese universities, and there we have a special focus on sustainable business models now and provide some extra grants. And during this whole Vienna Up Festival, we created a community where investors, startups, corporates mingled and try to find out where they can collaborate, where the money can be put, and where proof of concept projects can be conducted. And I'm so glad to see that sustainability is not only a main topic here at the Smart City Summit. It was a main topic at the Manufacturing Day. It is a main topic at the Health Innovation Summit. It is at the core of the program of the Connect Day, where investors and startups get together. So I think it really reached the core of what we are doing here in business. And even though we don't know yet exactly what that future economy will look like, there are so many people shaping that way. And that makes me really optimistic that we can achieve that goal. And I can promise you that Vienna Business Agency will be your partner for your innovation endeavors. And please don't hesitate to contact us and find out how we can help to make your dreams come true.
Thank you, Eva. We have heard, Bianca, that utility companies are the backbone of well-functioning cities. Why is it a good idea to set up a climate innovation fund at the level of Stadtwerke Holding? And how difficult is it to motivate different departments and companies to work together?
Well, we started innovation funding in 2012 and sustainability projects funding in 2020. And as of now, we had 180 innovation projects and over 60 sustainability projects that have been successfully funded. Not all successfully completed or up and running, but most of them. I think we have over 85% of success rate in these funded projects. And 90% of all of our projects are cooperative ones. So our group companies working together or our group companies working together with external partners. So that's not the tricky part. The tricky part is to find solutions that are actually as far in their development process to implement them somewhere to really make a difference. So, for example, there are a lot of projects of small trends that I came across using some form of new concrete, but most of them are not ready to be used, for example, in subway construction because it's just not tested enough for security reasons. But still, it's important to have research projects also in-house to look at these solutions and to test them if they are a possible way to lower CO2 emissions also in construction already.
Thank you. Sonja, we have learned about SmartWorks Innovations portfolio of startups. Can you tell us a bit more about your investment criteria?
Yeah, SmartWorks Innovation invest in early stage startups. That means from Series A, seed up to Series A. And of course, we are very interested in startups which can help us with the climate to tackle the climate change. Yeah, so that means, as I already said, energy. Yeah, in the field of energy, decarbonization, decentralization. I see a lot of startups with some solutions. In storage systems, so hardware-based, or also startups with circular economy. So all these areas are very important in the energy field. Yeah, as I already told you, with Smart City, we also see a lot of startups with mobility that support e-mobility and digitalization. So we invest money up to 500,000. It's not much, but our big plus is that we bring smart money. It's not only the money that we bring into the startup, but also the knowledge, as Bianca already said, of 16,000 employees of the city of Vienna and 2 million customers. They get energy and public transportation from Wiener Stadtwerke Group. Yeah? So this is the smart money, and this is very, very, very special for the startups. And we also we are also very interested in long-term partnerships. Yeah, that means we don't invest and they invest 2 years later. Yeah, but there's also possibility that startups stay in our portfolio for a long time.
Thank you, Sonja. And Clemens, if we think about your company, what did you learn are the biggest obstacles for homeowners when it comes to comprehensive renovation projects? How could we speed the process up? Yeah.
Very good question. I have no simple answer to it. I think it's a lot about communication and a lot about guiding them. I personally think that these pre-investment phases are decisive. And I have the feeling that mainly in these very early stages, we would need to develop more instruments for supports in bringing together these, at the moment, very heterogeneous decisions into one decision that is able to make these things then reality. But we are still learning. I mean, we are accompanying a lot of condominiums in decision-making processes, and it's never easy.
Thank you. And we have a quick final round of questions here on the podium. So a question to everyone from our panelists. If you were to have a wish or some kind of vision, something that we could probably learn from the UK, what would that be? And I please may limit you to one sentence. Eva.
My wish is that all the people in that room and in the audience join our path towards climate neutrality so that we will reach it by 2040 the latest.
Thank you, Eva. Sigrid. What's your wish?
My wish would be to imagine plausible and attractive futures in whatever, for your company, for your city, for yourself, and then head towards that with full energy and motivate also others to join and acknowledge limits on the way, but don't get distracted through the limits because they are just there. Yeah? We can still structure and develop a flourishing future.
Thank you. Bianca.
My wish is that all players involved in this path towards climate neutrality 2040 are working together even more. So City of Vienna, Wiener Stadtwerke, everyone involved, and give a platform also to, of course, small startups and everyone having great ideas towards reaching this goal.
Thank you. Sonja.
As a mother and stepmother of 4 children, I have the wish, I have the dream that my children and my future grandchildren will live in the most livable city also in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years. This is my dream.
Thank you, Sonja. And Clemens, yeah?
Yeah, I support very much this wish. I have only 3 children, but I have the same wish.
That's great. Thank you so much for being that brief and short. Let's probably now come to the general questions. So I have already received a few questions via Slido. If you have more questions, please do not hesitate to send them. And I think I have one for Sonja in this case. How large is the actual share of electric vehicles in the Viennese taxi fleet? Do we have an idea?
At the moment, I think they will start with a project with e-taxi in summer 2023. So if you have any further question, please contact me and I will make the bridge to the right person within the Wien Energie and UPIC.
That's great, thank you. And looking at the dystopic views we saw today, isn't there an urgent need to come up with a legal and political framework to enable a change? Probably Sigrid and Eva.
The answer is simple, yes.
And from a kind of academic point of view, if I may put it like that, Sigrid?
Yes, of course. It's important that we acknowledge action in the sense of individuals can make decisions in a different way, but it's also important to acknowledge the structures. And the structures are shaped by politicians. They are shaped by company leaders. So those who have the possibility to shape structures have an extra responsibility. And I take the responsibility also as part of a knowledge organization. It's also about changing our way, how we produce knowledge and the kind of knowledge that we are producing. Yeah. So it's agency as well as structure. Both is necessary. Hence, politics is really, really important.
Thank you so much. So we have come to an end. Let me finish with the famous words of Nelson Mandela. We can change the world and make it a better place. It is in your hands to make a difference. In this sense, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, let us make the difference. I may now hand over again to Barbara Inman. And one last remark from my side. There will be a tour at the Climate Lab, as Barbara has mentioned, quite shortly, and followed by a lunch. And in the afternoon, there are going to be some further exciting sessions. Please do mix and mingle, meet the audience, the panel, and the panel meets the audience, yeah, and exchange there, and happy networking, and thanks for staying with us, and a good day from Vienna. Yeah.
Yeah, Karin took away most of what I would have said. So welcome to everyone that arrived and is new here. We got a lot of food for thought now. A lot of content, at least my head is vibrating with different inputs, different topics, 1.5 hours of tough and hopeful content, I would say. We want to give you now the chance to, first of all, get not only food for your head, but food for your stomach, because that's important to process, and to mingle. So there was a lot of talking about dreams, wishes. We need to all be aligned to have a common future, have a common vision. So I would like to ask you in the next 1.5 hours to find at least one person that you don't know and share your dream and your wish with that person. And when we come back, maybe you can share a few of that in the audience. As mentioned, there will be a Climate Lab tour next to lunch as well. Tom and Gebhard. Tom is right over there. Gebhard is standing up here. Will be your two great guides. They will tell you a bit more about this place, how this came into being. We heard a bit, it's about climate innovation, bringing different stakeholders together, getting out of the silos, as Sigrid mentioned as well, as a very important task for the next years. But they will tell you more and as well show you the other rooms that are here, because we have 3 floors, not only that one. And for everybody that needs a toilet, because that's a need that some people have as well, you just cross out of this door and on both sides are the toilets. So then you have head, stomach, and anything else that is needed from a human body side. I wish you a happy break. We are back here at 1 o'clock with the next session around net zero cities.